The church bell was still ringing when the word "fatherless" cut through the pews, and Evelyn felt her daughter's hand go cold in hers. She could walk out now and lose the last roof that would take them, or stay and let the town finish what it had started. Boots scraped behind her. A man stepped into the aisle and knelt, choosing them in full view, daring the law and the congregation to answer. By sundown, papers would be written, doors threatened, and a child weighed like evidence. The town called it order. She called it a line. Would you stand when the whole place turns? Subscribe, watch to the end, and comment your city or country below. The bell finished ringing, and the church fell into its kneeling hush when the word landed. Fatherless. It slipped out of a boy's mouth like a joke that had been practiced, light enough to float, sharp enough to cut. Lila froze with her palms pressed together, eyes down, breath caught halfway in. The pews creaked as heads tilted. Someone coughed. Someone else smiled and hid it behind a hymn book. Evelyn felt it before she saw it. The small shudder beside her. The way Lila's shoulders drew inward, as if the air itself had turned cold. Christmas greenery hung along the windows, pine boughs tied with twine, a single red ribbon sagging under dust, but the warmth stopped short of their row. Evelyn did not look up. She counted the cracks in the floorboard beneath her boots. 1, 2, 3. If she stood now, they would say she brought disorder into the Lord's house. If she spoke, they would hear a woman who did not know her place. The boy laughed again. "No, Papa," he said, louder this time. "Told you." Lila's hands trembled. The little wooden cross at her neck tapped once against her chest. Evelyn reached for it without turning, her fingers closing around her daughter's wrist. "Hold steady. Stay still. Don't give them the thing they want. I won't break here." A woman in a starched coat shifted to her feet 3 rows ahead, concern arranged carefully on her face. She cleared her throat, the sound thin as paper. "Children," she said, sweet as syrup, "mind your words in church." But she didn't sit. She stayed standing, waiting. The pastor's voice floated from the pulpit, steady and distant, talking about mercy and the coming light. Outside, snow ticked softly against the windows. A candle near the altar guttered, then held. Someone began to hum the first notes of a carol and stopped. The woman turned. "Some burdens," she said, eyes finally finding Evelyn, "are invited." That did it. Not the word. The pause before it. The permission it gave. Evelyn lifted her head. Lila's eyes were wet, wide, searching her face for instructions. Evelyn tightened her grip. She could leave. She could gather her coat and her child and step back into the cold, where at least the judgment was honest. Or she could stay and let them finish it. She stayed. The woman smiled, satisfied, and took her seat. The pastor did not look down. The carol began again, thin but determined. A boot scraped at the back of the aisle. It was a small sound, lost under the hymn, but it moved like a ripple through the room. A man stepped out from the shadow near the doors. He did not hurry. He did not raise his voice. He walked the length of the aisle as if it belonged to him, as if time bent a little to make room. Evelyn saw his hat come off before she saw his face. He held it to his chest, brim pressed flat by a broad hand. He stopped beside their pew, and lowered himself until he was level with Lila's eyes. The church breathed in. "It's all right," he said. Not loud, not soft, just enough. "Look at me." Lila looked. "I'm here," he said. "You don't stand alone." The words landed where the laughter had been and pushed it out. A few heads turned away. Someone's foot slid back under a pew. The candle steadied. The man rose and stepped aside, leaving the aisle open again. He did not look at the woman in the starched coat. He did not look at the pulpit. He returned to the back as the carol reached its chorus, his shadow folding into the wood and glass. Evelyn's heart did not slow. If anything, it beat harder. Help was never free. Not here. Not anywhere. The service ended with a prayer and the scrape of benches. Coats were pulled on. Gloves were found. The door opened and the cold rushed in, honest and sharp. People filed past without meeting Evelyn's eyes. A few mothers drew their children close as they passed Lila, as if shame were catching. Evelyn stood and turned her body slightly, shielding her daughter. "We're going," she murmured. Lila nodded. She did not cry. That hurt more. At the door, the woman with the syrup smile waited, blocking the way as if by accident. "My dear," she said, fingers brushing Evelyn's sleeve, "we must talk. The council will need to consider what's proper given circumstances." Evelyn felt the eyes on her back. She could apologize. She could promise quiet. She could say thank you for the concern. "No," she said, and stepped around her. Outside, the snow was brighter. Bells hung on the doorframe, tarnished but intact. Someone had tied a scrap of green ribbon there for the season. Lila reached up and touched it with 2 fingers, as if to be sure it was real. Footsteps came up beside them, matching pace without crowding. "Miss," the man said. Evelyn stopped. She did not turn. "Sir." He held up his hands where she could see them. "I won't keep you." She waited. "I meant what I said," he went on. "What I did in there. I didn't ask for it. I know." That, too, was a kind of cut. He said it like a fact, not a favor. Lila looked up at him. "Mister," she said, and then nothing else, as if the word itself were a bridge she wasn't sure she was allowed to cross. He smiled at her, quick and careful. "That'll do." Evelyn tightened her grip, again. "We're fine." He nodded once. "If that changes." He took a folded thing from his coat pocket and set it on the rail by the steps without pushing it toward them. A peppermint, wrapped in paper. "For the road." He touched the brim of his hat and stepped away, boots crunching into the white. He did not look back. Evelyn stood until he was gone. Then she picked up the peppermint and placed it in Lila's palm. "Later," she said. They walked down the street past the shuttered store and the bank with its painted windows. Somewhere a bell rang again, farther off, marking the hour. A fir tree leaned against the wall of the schoolhouse, waiting to be brought inside. Someone had chalked a star on the door. The room they rented was small and cold, the stove sulking until coaxed. Evelyn set to work without taking off her coat, hands moving from habit. Lila sat on the bed and unwrapped the peppermint just enough to smell it. "Why did he kneel?" Lila asked. Evelyn fed a splinter into the fire and watched it catch. Because he chose to, she said, and because sometimes grown men remember what it's like to be small. Lila nodded, satisfied for now. She hung the broken ribbon from the door on a nail, the green a little dull in the lamplight. A knock came, soft but certain. Evelyn froze. Help was never free. She opened the door a hand's width. The man stood there, snow melting on his shoulders. He did not step forward. He held out a paper, folded and clean. "The council meets tomorrow," he said. "They'll set conditions. They always do." "And you know this how?" "Because I've sat in that room." He hesitated. "They listen when they think they're being watched." Evelyn took the paper. It was a note, brief, naming a time and a place. "Why?" she asked. He looked past her at the room, the stove, the bed too small for two. His jaw tightened. "Because words said in church don't get to decide what happens to a child." Silence filled the space between them. The stove popped. Outside, someone began to sing, off-key, a carol about peace. "I can't pay you," Evelyn said. "I didn't ask." Lila appeared at her side, peppermint forgotten. She held out the broken ribbon. "Mister," she said, "you can have this. It's for Christmas." The man crouched and accepted it as if it were gold. "Thank you." When he left, the room felt larger and more dangerous at the same time. Evelyn closed the door and leaned her forehead against it. Tomorrow had teeth, conditions, councils, a town that had already chosen its word. She straightened. She set the paper on the table. She knelt to Lila's height and met her eyes. "We're staying," she said. Lila nodded, fierce and quiet. Outside, the bell rang once more, and the candle in the church held through the draft. Morning came without mercy. Snow had fallen again in the night, thin but stubborn, whitening the street just enough to hide yesterday's tracks. Evelyn woke before the bell and lay still, listening to the stove click and cool, to Lila's small breaths rising and falling. For a moment, she let herself pretend they were nowhere. No town, no council, no word waiting to be used again. Then the bell rang. She rose, pulled on her coat, and set water to heat. Lila sat up on the bed, rubbing sleep from her eyes. The broken ribbon still hung on the nail, green dulled to gray in the morning light. Evelyn took it down and smoothed it flat between her palms, then tucked it into her pocket. "Eat," she said, setting a heel of bread on the table. Lila ate without complaint. She always did. That, too, was a kind of courage. They stepped outside together. The street smelled of snow and coal smoke. The schoolhouse loomed ahead, door shut, windows dark. A star still chalked on the wood, crooked now from the storm. Someone had added a line beneath it. "Keep order." Evelyn felt Lila's hand tighten in hers. The council met in the back room of the bank, where money learned to speak softly and be obeyed. Chairs scraped as they entered. Hats came off. A ledger lay open on the table, its pages heavy with decisions already made. The woman from church sat at one end, gloved hands folded. She smiled as if greeting a guest. Evelyn did not sit until she was told. "We're grateful you came," the pastor said, voice careful. "We want peace." Peace was a word like mercy. Everyone liked to hold it. Few liked to pay for it. A man cleared his throat. "There are concerns," he said, not looking at Evelyn, "about propriety. About influence. I teach reading, Evelyn said, and sums. That isn't all a school does. No, she said, but it's where it starts. The woman leaned forward. We're prepared to offer terms, she said, temporary, to ease minds. Evelyn waited. You may teach, the woman continued, provided certain conditions are met, quietly, without displays. Displays, Evelyn repeated. The woman's smile held. You will reside elsewhere. The inn is unsuitable. You will not bring the child to church for a time. And you will refrain from, she paused, choosing her word, attachments. Evelyn felt the room tilt. Elsewhere meant nowhere. Not bringing Lila meant making her invisible. Attachments meant the man with the peppermint and the paper. No, Evelyn said. The pastor's brow creased. Miss, no, she said again, steadier. If I teach, my child eats. If I work, my child is not hidden. And I will not pretend my life is a stain you can scrub away. Silence settled. The ledger lay open, unblinking. A chair scraped at the door. Boots crossed the floor. The man stood there, hat off, snow melting into a dark crescent on the brim. He did not smile. I'll take the room, he said. The woman turned. This is council business. And I'm offering a solution, he said. The room over my barn. Warm. Close to the schoolhouse. No rent. Evelyn's chest tightened. Help was never free. And the child? The woman asked. Comes with her, he said. Anywhere she goes. The pastor hesitated. That may appear improper. The man met his eyes. So does starving a teacher. A murmur rose, checked itself. The ledger page turned. Fine, the woman said, crisp. Temporary. Everything is, the man said. Evelyn stood. I will teach, she said. Under those terms. Outside, the bell rang again, thin in the cold. They walked together without touching, the distance between them measured. The barn sat behind the house, sturdy, honest. The room above it smelled of hay and pine. A stove waited, clean, a small table, 2 chairs, a window that looked toward the schoolhouse. Lila crossed the room and pressed her forehead to the glass. I can see the door, she said. That's good, the man said. Evelyn turned to him. I won't stay if... I know, he said. You'll stay until you don't. She nodded. Thank you. He shook his head once. Not for that. He left them with a key and a single instruction. Lock up at night. The first day of lessons came with a sky like tin. Children filed in, boots wet, faces wary. Evelyn set her books on the desk and wrote her name on the board. She did not write anything else. Who can tell me what this says? She asked, tapping the chalk against the empty space. A hand rose, then fell. It says nothing, a boy said. Evelyn smiled. Good. Now we begin. At noon, the man appeared at the door with a sack. He did not enter. He set it down and stepped back. Flour, he said, and apples. I can't... I know. He left before she could finish. That night, wind worried the eaves. Evelyn lay awake, counting breaths. Somewhere below, an animal shifted. A footstep passed the door and moved on. She sat up, heart loud, then lay back when the quiet held. I won't break here. Morning brought a note slid under the door. Church tonight. Candle service. Attendance expected. Evelyn folded it small. They went. The candles made a low river of light. Carols rose and fell. Lila sang under her breath, careful. The woman watched from her seat, smile fixed. The pastor spoke of peace again. Halfway through, a whisper moved the room. Heads turned. A man at the back rose and walked the aisle, hat in hand. He knelt, not beside Lila this time, in the aisle, where everyone could see. I'll be responsible, he said. The words fell like coins on a table. The woman stood. Responsible for what? For them, he said. For what happens when you decide who belongs. The pastor opened his mouth, closed it. Evelyn felt the heat rise to her face. This was the price. She stood before she could stop, herself. I did not ask him, she said. I will not trade my work for protection. The man looked at her, surprised. Something like relief crossed his face. I know, he said. This is mine. The room breathed in. The candle flames wavered and steadied. After, the street was louder. Voices followed them, questions sharp as ice. Evelyn kept her eyes forward. Lila held her hand, chin high. At the barn door, the man paused. They'll come harder now, he said. Evelyn nodded. I know. He hesitated. You don't have to stay. She looked at the schoolhouse light across the yard. Yes, she said. I do. He smiled then, not wide. All right. Snow began again, soft and relentless, laying a thin white over the town's words. The quiet did not last. It never did. By morning, the snow had been trampled into gray ribbons along the street, and the chalk star on the schoolhouse door had been smeared into something that looked like a warning instead of a blessing. Evelyn arrived early, key cold in her palm, breath smoking. She unlocked the door and stepped inside, the room smelling of slate dust and damp wool. She set the books straight, swept the floor, lit the stove. Ordinary acts. Armor made of habit. Children came in twos and threes, boots knocking, eyes darting. Lila took her place by the window with a scrap of paper and a stub of pencil. She watched the yard the way a bird watches a field. Midway through the lesson, a chair scraped. A boy stood without raising his hand. My pa says you won't be here long, he said, voice carrying. Says it's not fitting. Evelyn did not turn. She wrote a sum on the board and tapped it once with the chalk. Sit, she said. The boy hesitated, then sat. The stove popped. Outside, a sleigh bell rang and faded. The lesson continued. At noon, the sack appeared again at the door. This time there was no flour, only apples, bruised but sweet. A note lay on top. For the child. Evelyn folded it and tucked it into her book. She did not look outside. Help was never free. That afternoon, the pastor came. He stood in the doorway, hat in hand, eyes soft. We've had concerns, he said, about influence, about the tone. Evelyn waited. It would help, he continued, if you kept to the lessons. Reading, sums, leave the rest. The rest? She asked. He smiled, apologetic. Questions, opinions. I teach children, Evelyn said. They come with questions. His smile thinned. Peace has a cost. She met his eyes. So does quiet. He left without another word. That night, the wind rose and worried the boards. Evelyn lay awake, listening to it find the gaps. Lila slept curled tight, the broken ribbon now tied to her wrist. Below them, a door opened and closed. Boots crossed the yard. A knock came, hard and sudden. Evelyn sat up, heart loud. She slipped from the bed and opened the door a crack. Caleb stood there, coat dusted white, jaw set. He did not step inside. They took a cow, he said. Who? The men from town, he said. Said it was for the church supper. Didn't ask. Evelyn's hands curled in the doorframe. And you let them? He looked away. Not tonight. She understood then. This was the price. Not words, not notes. Meat on a table. Quiet bought with muscle. I won't eat it, she said. I didn't bring it, he said. I came to tell you. Silence filled the doorway. Lila stirred and sat up, eyes wide. Mister? She whispered. Caleb softened. It's all right. Evelyn closed the door and leaned her forehead against it. I won't break here. Morning brought the church supper. The smell of roast drifted through town. Rich and wrong, Evelyn. Taught through it. Stomach tight. Children whispered. A girl asked if the teacher would pray over the meat. Evelyn paused. You can pray anywhere, she said. Even when you don't like what's on the table. At dusk, the bell rang again. Attendants expected. They went. Tables filled the hall, white cloths laid neat. The woman presided, smile bright, hands moving. Plates passed. People ate. Eyes slid toward Evelyn and slid away. Caleb stood at the back, arms crossed, hat off. He did not eat. A man raised a glass. To peace, he said. To peace, the room echoed. Evelyn set her fork down. She stood. The sound cut through the talk. I won't, she said. The woman tilted her head. Won't what, dear? I won't eat what was taken to buy my silence, Evelyn said. Her voice shook and held. I won't teach children that this is peace. A murmur rose, quick and nervous. The pastor half stood, then sat. Caleb moved, one step forward, then stopped. The woman's smile hardened. You insult us. No, Evelyn said. I refuse you. Silence stretched thin. A candle guttered and steadied. A chair scraped. A boy stood, one of Evelyn's students. My pa took the cow, he said. He said it was right. His father hissed his name. The boy didn't sit. Another voice followed. Then another. Words fell into the room, small and heavy. The woman's eyes flicked, counting. Enough, the pastor said. This is not the time. When is it? Evelyn asked. The bell outside rang once as if answering. They left without eating. Snow had begun again, light as ash. At the barn door, Caleb stopped. I'll return the cow, he said. Evelyn shook her head. No. He frowned. They'll take another. Then we'll be hungry, she said. But we won't be owned. He searched her face, something like admiration and fear tangled there. You're asking for a fight. I know, she said. I'm already in one. The next days came sharp. The council posted a notice at the schoolhouse. Temporary review. Parents hesitated at the door. A few turned away. A few sent their children anyway, eyes apologetic. Lila counted who came and who didn't. 3, she said one morning. Then 4. Evelyn nodded. Numbers mattered. A rock shattered the schoolhouse window that night. No note. No knock. Just glass and cold air. Caleb arrived before dawn with boards and nails. He worked without speaking, breath clouding, hammer ringing. Evelyn held the lantern. Lila watched from the steps, ribbon bright against her sleeve. "They'll escalate," he said finally. Evelyn lifted the lantern higher. "So will I." He stopped and looked at her. "What do you need?" She considered. "A witness," she said. "Not a shield." He nodded. "All right." The review came on Christmas Eve. The room was full. The ledger open again. The pastor prayed. The woman spoke of order. Evelyn spoke of work. She laid the children's copybooks on the table, pages smudged and earnest. "This is what I do," she said. "Judge that." A man shifted. "And the child?" Evelyn felt the familiar heat. "Is fed, is taught, is loved." Caleb stood at the back, hands empty. "And if she weren't," he said, "that would be our failure, not hers." The woman's eyes flashed. "You presume much?" He met her gaze. "I accept the cost." Silence held. Outside, a carol drifted past the window, thin and stubborn. Peace on earth. The words sounded like a dare. The decision came slow. Temporary became conditional. Conditional became watched. Evelyn accepted. She always had. That night, snow fell clean. Evelyn lit a candle in the small room above the barn and set it in the window. Lila tied the ribbon to it, green and frayed. Caleb stood in the yard, hat in hand. "For Christmas," Lila said, shy. She held out an apple, bruised but sweet. Caleb took it. "Thank you." Evelyn watched the flame steady against the dark. Tomorrow would come with teeth. She knew that now. But the light held. "I won't break here." Christmas morning did not soften the town. It sharpened it. The snow lay clean and thin, a skin over the ruts, and the bell rang with a brightness that felt almost cruel. Evelyn woke to the sound and lay still, counting Lila's breaths, listening to the animal below stamp once and settle. The candle from the night before had burned low, its stub blackened. She pinched it out and dressed in the cold, movements careful, practiced. Lila sat up and reached for the ribbon. She tied it again, neater this time, and smiled as if the day were any other. Evelyn envied that. They walked to the schoolhouse together. The window Caleb had boarded held, the wood pale against the dark frame. Someone had scrawled words beneath the notice during the night. "Right is right." The letters were crooked, the chalk thick. Evelyn unlocked the door and stepped inside. The room smelled of damp wool and slate, familiar and steady. She laid out the books. She set the chalk. She lit the stove. Ordinary acts, still armor. Only 5 children came. Evelyn did not comment. She taught as if the room were full, voice level, eyes kind. She asked questions that had answers and questions that did not. She listened. When the bell rang, the children lingered, then left in ones and twos, glancing back. At noon, there was no sack at the door. Evelyn felt the hollow open and closed it again. She cut the apple Lila had saved into thin slices and laid them on bread. "Slow," she said. "Make it last." Lila nodded and ate, careful. "Will they come back?" she asked. "Some," Evelyn said. "Enough." That afternoon, a wagon rolled into the yard and stopped hard. Two men climbed down, boots crunching, faces set. They did not knock. They pushed the door open with a shoulder. "This is a review," one said. "By order." Evelyn stood between them and the desk. "You can speak," she said. "You can't touch." They looked at each other, then at the room, at the few coats on hooks, at Lila by the window. The smaller man cleared his throat. "The council wants assurance," he said, "that standards are kept." "Read," Evelyn said, and held out a book. He did not take it. "Outside," the other said, "with the man." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "No." They stepped closer. Lila's pencil snapped in her hand. A shadow crossed the doorway. Boots sounded on the boards. Caleb filled the frame, hat off, eyes steady. He did not raise his voice. "You're done," he said. The men puffed themselves up, a reflex. "This doesn't concern you." "It does," he said. "You don't put hands on children." They left with words still in their mouths, retreating the way bullies always do, slow, loud, pretending choice. When the door shut, the room exhaled. Evelyn's hands shook. She set them flat on the desk until they stopped. "They'll come back," she said. Caleb nodded. "Different way." That night the church held its second service. Candles again, carols again. The town packed in tight, heat rising. Evelyn sat with Lila and felt eyes measure her from every angle. The woman's voice moved through the crowd, arranging greetings, gathering allies. The pastor spoke of right and wrong as if they were fences. Evelyn listened and felt the word press against her ribs. Right. Who got to say it? Who paid for it? Halfway through, a child cried, a sound too sharp for hymns. Heads turned. A mother stood, flustered, trying to hush him. Lila slipped from the pew and knelt, offering her ribbon. "It's for Christmas," she whispered. The child took it and stopped crying. A ripple passed through the room. Not approval, recognition. After, the cold bit harder. The street rang with voices, some friendly, some not. A hand brushed Evelyn's sleeve, then withdrew. A woman whispered, "You're brave," and vanished. At the barn, Caleb paused. "They're meeting," he said. "Tonight." Evelyn nodded. "I know." She lay awake listening to the town breathe. Somewhere a glass broke. Somewhere laughter rose and fell. She counted Lila's breaths until sleep took her. Morning came with iron light. The knock was loud enough to rattle the door. Evelyn opened it to find the pastor and the woman standing together, faces arranged. "We've decided," the pastor said, "for the good of all." The woman smiled. "You will resign." Evelyn did not blink. "No." The woman's smile thinned. "Then you leave." "And the children?" "They will be taught," the woman said, "by someone suitable." Evelyn felt the heat rise. By whom? That will be arranged. Caleb stepped forward. You don't have a teacher. The woman turned to him. We will. With what? He asked. Who will come? Silence answered. You're making this harder than it needs to be, the pastor said, tired now. Think of the child. Evelyn laughed once, sharp. I do, every day. They left with their decision intact, the door closing too gently behind them. The town moved fast after that. Notices went up. A list. Names. Conditions. Parents hovered. Children whispered. Evelyn taught anyway. On the fourth day, the stove went cold and would not relight. The wood was gone. Evelyn sent Lila to fetch more and watched the door. Lila did not come back. Minutes stretched thin. Evelyn stepped outside, heart loud. The yard was empty. The schoolhouse door stood open, chalk dust swirling in the cold. Lila, she called. A voice answered, too calm. She's fine. The woman stood by the fence, gloved hand resting on the rail. Lila stood beside her, chin high, ribbon in her fist. We're walking, the woman said. Talking. Evelyn crossed the yard in 3 strides. Let her go. The woman tilted her head. She should understand the town's expectations. Evelyn's hand shook. She's a child. So are all of them, the woman said. That's why they need guidance. Caleb's voice cut in low. Step away. The woman's eyes flicked. You again. He moved closer, not touching. Now. She released the rail. Lila ran, colliding with Evelyn's legs. Evelyn knelt and wrapped her arms tight. Inside, Caleb said to both of them. That night, the barn door was set on fire. It was small at first, a lick of flame, easily beaten down with snow. The smoke was worse, stinging, choking. Evelyn coughed, eyes streaming. Caleb stamped and shoveled, hands blistering. Lila clutched the ribbon and did not cry. By dawn, the door was blackened and scarred. The message was clear. They stood together in the cold, looking at the damage. This ends, Caleb said. Evelyn shook her head. It escalates. He met her eyes. Then we changed the terms. How? With daylight, he said, and witnesses. The meeting was called at noon, not night. The room filled. The ledger lay open. The pastor prayed. The woman spoke of safety. Evelyn spoke last. She did not argue. She placed the broken board on the table. The burned edge flaked ash. She placed the ribbon beside it. Green against black. This, she said, is what your right looks like. A murmur rose, different this time. Uneasy. A man stood. My boy came home crying, he said. Said someone told him not to sit by her. Another voice followed. Then another. Words stacked, small and steady. The woman's smile faltered. This is disorder. Caleb stepped forward, hands empty. No, he said. It's daylight. The decision came slow, like a tide turning against its own pull. The review was lifted. The conditions loosened. Not victory. Not yet. But ground. Outside, snow began again, soft as breath. Evelyn stepped into it and felt it land on her lashes. They walked back to the barn together, the town watching from windows and doors. some faces hard, some thoughtful, some ashamed. At the door, Evelyn stopped. "I won't leave," she said. Caleb nodded. "I know." She looked at the burned wood, at the ribbon in Lila's hand, at the schoolhouse light across the yard. The day had teeth. It always would. But the light held. "I won't break here." The cold settled deeper after the fire, the kind that did not hurry away with daylight. Smoke lingered in the grain of the barn door, a bitter reminder that clung to clothes and hair. Evelyn scrubbed at it with snow until her fingers burned and the wood stayed black anyway. Some things did not come clean. School resumed the next morning as if nothing had happened. 5 children became 7. 7 became 9. Parents hovered at the door, pretending errands, pretending they were not watching how their children were treated when they crossed the threshold. Evelyn taught as she always had. She did not speak of the fire. She did not speak of the woman. She spoke of letters, of sums, of how words could fit together to make sense of a hard world. She watched which children shared their pencils. She watched who sat alone. At noon, a sack appeared again at the door. This time it was not flour. It was coal. Evelyn stared at it longer than she meant to. Coal meant heat. Heat meant safety. Safety meant dependence. She did not touch it. By evening, the sack was gone. The bell rang for church, but Evelyn did not go. She sent Lila with a neighbor girl instead and stayed behind, mending the sleeve of her coat by the lamplight. Her hands moved steady. Her mind did not. Help was never free. Silence cost more. A knock came, softer than the one before. Caleb stood outside, hat in hand, eyes rimmed red from the cold. He did not step in. "They've drawn a line," he said. Evelyn nodded. "They already did." "They're saying you turned down charity," he said. "They're saying pride." Evelyn tied off her stitch. "They can say it. They're saying it's unchristian." She looked up then. "So is burning a door." He almost smiled. "They'll push again," he said. "They want you gone before spring." Evelyn leaned back in her chair. "Then they'll have to move me." The words surprised her. They tasted solid. That night, snow fell hard, thick enough to muffle the town. Evelyn dreamed of chalk breaking in her hand, of letters smearing into ash. She woke before dawn to the sound of hooves. A wagon rolled into the yard and stopped. Voices followed. Men's voices. Too cheerful, too loud. Evelyn pulled on her coat and stepped outside. 3 men stood by the fence. One held a paper. "By order," he said, as if it explained everything. "Inspection." Evelyn crossed the yard. "Of what?" "Of suitability," he said. "Dwelling. Influence." Lila appeared at the door, ribbon bright against her sleeve. "No," Evelyn said. The man shrugged. "Then we'll mark it." He stepped toward the barn wall with a pot of paint. Caleb came out of the house without hurry. He took the pot from the man's hand and set it on the ground. "You won't," he said. The man puffed himself up. "This isn't your—" Caleb looked at him. Just looked. The man stopped talking. "Leave," Caleb said. They left with laughter trailing. Behind them, thin and forced, The pot of paint sat in the snow, lid askew. Red. Evelyn felt the shake start in her knees and climbed it back out with breath. They'll come again. Yes, Caleb said. With daylight. With witnesses. That was the part that scared her. Sunday came gray and raw. The town gathered early, not for prayer but for watching. The church doors stood open. The chalk on the schoolhouse door had been refreshed. Order keeps us safe. Evelyn walked with Lila between her and the house, steps measured. She did not carry books. She carried nothing. Inside, the pews filled. The woman sat straight-backed, gloves pristine. The pastor's voice wavered as he called for calm. "This is not a trial," he said. "No," the woman said. "It's a correction." They stood Evelyn in the aisle, Lila beside her, eyes pressed from every angle. The bell outside rang once, then stopped. "You have refused assistance," the woman said. "You have caused disruption. You have invited—" She paused, letting the word find its weight. Attachment. Evelyn did not answer. "For the good of the town," the woman continued, "you will resign at week's end. You will vacate the premises provided, quietly." "And if I don't?" Evelyn asked. The woman smiled. "Then we act." Caleb stepped forward. The room tightened. "I won't allow it," he said. The woman turned to him. "You presume again?" He nodded. "I do." A murmur rose, uncertain. The pastor lifted his hands. "Please." Evelyn felt Lila's fingers curl into her coat. She bent slightly, enough to feel her daughter's breath. "Look at me," she whispered. Lila looked. "I'm here," Evelyn said. "You don't stand alone." The words steadied her. They steadied the room. Evelyn straightened. "You want quiet," she said to the woman. "You want order. Here is mine." She reached into her pocket and took out a folded stack. Papers, copybooks, letters. She laid them on the rail. "These are the children's hands," she said. "Their work, their words, their questions. If you take me, you take this." A man stood, rough coat, hat crushed in his hands. "My girl learned to read," he said. "She reads to her ma now." Another voice followed, then another. The sound grew, not loud, but layered. The woman's smile slipped. "This is chaos." "No," Caleb said. "This is daylight." The pastor's shoulders sagged. He closed his eyes, then opened them. "Enough," he said, voice breaking. "Enough." Silence held. The bell outside rang again. A mistake, then stopped. The decision did not come clean. It came bent. A compromise. A committee. More watching. Less saying. Evelyn accepted because children waited on Monday. Outside, the air tasted different. Not sweeter. Just less tight. They walked back through the yard together. Snow began again. Soft. Persistent. At the barn door, Caleb stopped. "I'll stand," he said. "As long as it takes." Evelyn looked at him, really looked. The lines at his eyes. The way he held himself like a brace set into the ground. "I don't need a shield," she said. "I know," he said. "I'm not one." That night, someone left coal at the door. No note, no knock. Evelyn stared at it, then carried it inside. Heat rose slow and welcome. Lila warmed her hands and smiled. "Is this bad?" she asked. Evelyn considered. "No," she said. "It's complicated." The next days held, barely. Children came, parents watched, words stayed mostly in mouths. On Thursday, a boy slipped on the steps and split his lip. Evelyn cleaned it with care. His mother arrived breathless and angry and left quieter. On Friday, the chalk star was scrubbed away. On Saturday night, another knock came. Evelyn opened the door to find the woman alone, without gloves. The cold had found her too. "This ends soon," the woman said, "one way or another." Evelyn met her gaze. "So does winter." The woman's mouth tightened. She turned and walked away. Evelyn closed the door and leaned against it, breath shaking. "I won't break here." Outside, the town settled into uneasy sleep. Snow fell, covering words, softening edges, never asking permission. Inside, the fire held. Winter did not ask permission before it tightened its grip. It came in the night and stayed, sealing the road, stiffening the hinges, turning breath into proof. Evelyn woke to the sound of the barn boards complaining, a low ache that ran through the wood like a warning. She dressed in the dark and lit the stove. The coal caught, slow and grudging, then held. Lila sat on the bed, tying the ribbon again. It was frayed now, green worn thin by hands and days. "Is it bad?" Lila asked. Evelyn listened to the wind find a seam and worry it. "It's loud," she said. "That's different." They walked to the schoolhouse through snow that squeaked underfoot. The notice was gone. So was the chalk. The door stood bare and plain. That should have felt like relief. It didn't. Only 6 children came. Evelyn taught anyway. She always did. She wrote a sentence on the board and asked them to read it aloud together. Their voices did not line up at first. She waited. They found each other. At noon, there was no sack at the door. Evelyn felt the familiar hollow and closed it again. She split the last of the coal smaller than before. She cut bread thin. Lila ate carefully, crumbs saved. After lessons, a man waited by the fence. He held his hat in both hands, turning it. "They're saying you refused help again," he said. "They're saying you think you're better." Evelyn leaned against the fence rail. "I think children should eat." He nodded, embarrassed. "They're asking for proof." "Of what?" "That you're suitable." Evelyn looked past him at the schoolhouse window, clouded now. "What kind of proof?" He shifted. "The kind they can keep." That night, the knock came far after the wind died down. 3 men stood on the step, faces set in lines they had practiced. One held a paper. One held a lantern. The third held nothing and looked at the ground. "By order," the man with the paper said. "We're taking the child." The words landed flat, heavy. Evelyn did not step aside. "No. It's temporary," he said, "for her own good." Lila's hand found Evelyn's coat. "Mama?" Evelyn felt the room narrow. "You don't touch her." The man with the lantern lifted it, letting the light fall. "This will go easier if you cooperate." A shadow filled the doorway. Caleb stood there, coat thrown on, boots unlaced. He did not raise his voice. "Leave." The man with the paper smiled thin. "This is town business." Caleb stepped forward until they had to look up at him. Not tonight. The third man cleared his throat. We don't want trouble. You brought it, Caleb said. They left with the paper still in the Schultz's hand, the lantern swinging too fast. Their footsteps faded. Evelyn closed the door and slid the bolt home. Her knees shook now. She let them. They'll come again, she said. Caleb nodded. With daylight. Sleep did not come. The wind returned and found the boards, again. Evelyn lay awake listening to Lila breathe. Counting. Counting. I won't break here. Morning came white and blinding. The road was closed. The town gathered anyway, drawn by the promise of a line being crossed. They came to the barn in a group this time. Not men with papers, families. Mothers with scarves tight, fathers with jaws set. The woman stood at the front, gloves pristine. We're here for the child, she said, voice calm. This is about safety. Evelyn stepped outside, closing the door behind her. She's safe. Not from influence, the woman said. Caleb stood beside Evelyn, hands empty. You don't get to decide that. A murmur moved through the crowd. Someone coughed. Someone laughed, then stopped. We've arranged a place, the woman continued. A good home, proper. Evelyn felt the heat rise. You'll have to go through me. The woman's eyes flicked. If that's what it takes. A hand reached for the door. Caleb moved. Not fast. Certain. He put himself between the hand and the wood. No. The hand dropped. A voice rose from the back. A woman. Let the girl speak. Lila stepped forward before Evelyn could stop her. She stood small and straight, ribbon bright against her sleeve. I don't want to go, she said. The woman smiled, practiced. Sweetheart, this is for your own... No, Lila said louder. I stay. The word cut clean. The crowd shifted. A man swore under his breath. Another looked away. You see, the woman said, she doesn't understand. Caleb knelt then, not beside Lila, in front of the crowd. He took off his hat and set it on the snow. I do, he said, and so do you. Silence spread, brittle as ice. You take her, he continued, voice steady, and you take me too. You put it on the record. You tell the road I didn't move. The woman stared. You would bind yourself to this? Yes, he said. I choose them. The word hung there. Choose. It was not rescue. It was not charity. It was a line. The pastor pushed through the crowd, breath coming fast. This has gone too far. It went too far when you taught children to fear each other, Evelyn said. The pastor closed his eyes. Enough, he said. Enough. The crowd breathed out. Not relief. Release. The woman's smile cracked. This isn't finished. No, Caleb said. It's written. They left then, not all at once. A few stayed behind, awkward, ashamed. One woman pressed a small sack into Evelyn's hands. Apples, no note. Inside, Evelyn leaned against the door and slid to the floor. The room spun and steadied. You did good, Caleb said, low. Evelyn laughed once, sharp. I did nothing. You stood, he said. That's something. Days passed. The road remained closed. The schoolhouse stayed open. 8 children came, then 10. Parents lingered less. The woman did not come. On the 4th day, a notice went up at the bank. Review concluded. No signatures, no explanations. That night, a knock came, gentle this time. Evelyn opened the door to find the pastor alone, hat crushed in his hands. "I'm sorry," he said. "I was afraid." "So was I," Evelyn said. He nodded. "The town listens to strength," he said. "It shouldn't, but it does." Caleb stood behind Evelyn, silent. The pastor hesitated. "There will be consequences." Evelyn met his eyes. "There always are." Winter loosened its grip a little after that. Not mercy, just time. Snow fell softer. The wind rested. On Sunday, the bell rang and rang. Evelyn went. She sat near the back. Lila beside her, ribbon tied neat. Caleb stood by the door. The carol rose, thin and stubborn. Peace on earth. The words sounded like work. After, people nodded as they passed. Some smiled. Some did not. A few stopped and spoke. Outside, the sky was a hard blue. Evelyn breathed it in. At the barn, she stopped. "You didn't have to," she said. Caleb shrugged. "I wanted to." "That's different." "Yes," he said. "It is." She looked at the schoolhouse light across the yard, at the path worn in the snow by small boots. The day still had teeth. The town still had memory. But the line held. "I won't break here." The thaw came crooked. Ice loosened along the eaves, dripping in fits, then froze again at dusk. The road opened just enough to let wagons through and rumors with them. Evelyn felt it in the way people paused at the door, in the way voices dropped when she passed. The town had not forgiven. It had only learned a quieter shape. School filled, then thinned, then filled again. 12 children one day, 9 the next. Evelyn kept the door open and the stove fed. She taught letters and numbers and the discipline of listening. She taught them how to wait their turn and how to hold a thought without squeezing it to death. At noon, a sack appeared. Flour this time. No note. Evelyn stared at it, then carried it inside. Help was never free, but hunger charged interest. That afternoon, a man came who did not pretend kindness. He wore a clean coat and held a small book close to his chest, thumb marking a place. He did not remove his hat. "I keep accounts," he said. Evelyn gestured to a chair. "Then sit." He did not. "The town has concerns," he said, "about costs." "What costs?" she asked. He smiled without warmth. "Charity has a way of spreading." Evelyn folded her hands. "Children learning to read is not a cost." "It is if it invites expectation," he said. "People begin to ask for more." "And if they do?" He tapped his book. "Then someone must say no." Outside, Lila's laughter rang once and stopped. Evelyn felt the sound snag in her chest. "You will be audited," the man said. "Your supplies, your arrangements." "My arrangements," Evelyn said. "With the man," he said. "I have an arrangement with the stove and the children," she said. "Nothing else." He wrote something, the pencil scratching. "We'll see." That night, The thaw broke a gutter loose and sent a sheet of ice sliding into the yard. Caleb fixed it without comment, breath steady, fingers sure. Evelyn held the ladder. Lila counted the nails. "Why are they counting us?" Lila asked. Evelyn considered. "Because numbers make people feel safe," she said, "even when they don't tell the truth." Lila nodded, as if that explained everything. Sunday came with bells and the smell of damp wool. The sermon turned on stewardship. Evelyn listened and kept her face still. Caleb stood by the door, hat off, eyes forward. When the plate passed, it slowed at their pew. Evelyn did not put anything in. After, a woman pressed coins into Evelyn's palm and whispered, "For the school." Then she moved away, as if afraid of being seen. Evelyn closed her fingers over the metal. She did not look at it until she was home. 2 nickels, warm from a hand that shook. The audit came on a Wednesday. 3 men arrived with boxes and paper and the careful confidence of people who expected compliance. They opened cupboards. They counted chalk. They weighed coal. They asked for names. Evelyn answered what she would and nothing more. "This, flour," one said, lifting the sack. "Where from?" Evelyn met his eyes. "The door." "That isn't an answer. It's the truth." They wrote. They frowned. They conferred in low voices that traveled anyway. At the end, the man with the small book closed it. "There is an imbalance," he said. "Between what and what?" Evelyn asked. "Between what is given and what is owed." "Owed to whom?" He hesitated. "The town." Evelyn laughed once, sharp. "The town owes the children." He did not smile. The notice went up 2 days later at the bank and the church both. "Assessment pending." Smaller letters beneath it named a date. Caleb read it without comment. "They want payment," he said. "In one form or another." "For what?" Evelyn asked. "For standing," he said. The word sat between them, ugly and familiar. That night, the wind came back. It found the seams and worked them. Evelyn lay awake listening, counting. "I won't break here." Morning brought a wagon and a bell rung by a hand that did not belong to the church. People gathered, curious. The man with the small book climbed down and cleared his throat. "This is notice," he said. "If the assessment is not met, assets will be seized." "What assets?" someone called. The man's eyes slid to the schoolhouse. "Those that serve the imbalance." Evelyn felt the room narrow. "You'll take books," she said. "Chalk." "And the room," he said, "if necessary." Caleb stepped forward. "You'll take nothing." The man smiled thin. "That remains to be seen." That afternoon, a child did not come home. It was not Lila. It was a boy from the back row, quick with sums, slow with words. His mother arrived at the schoolhouse, breathless, eyes wild. "They kept him," she said. "At the bank. Said questions." Evelyn did not put on her coat. She walked. The bank smelled of ink and money. The boy sat on a bench, feet not touching the floor. The man with the small book stood over him, voice low. Evelyn placed herself between them. "You will let him go." The man looked at her as if she were a ledger line out of place. "We are within our rights." "You are within my sight," she said. And that ends now." The boy slipped past her and ran. His mother sobbed once, loud and grateful. Caleb filled the doorway. He did not speak. The man closed his book. "You make this worse." Evelyn leaned in. "No," she said. "You do." Outside, the town breathed in and did not know what to do with it. That night, a meeting was called, not by the church, by the people. It gathered in the schoolhouse, benches dragged close, heat rising. The man with the small book stood to one side, watchful. Evelyn did not plan to speak. She listened instead as voices rose, small grievances, larger fears. A mother spoke of the boy on the bench. A father spoke of the chalk star and what it had taught his son. Caleb stood when there was a lull. "They are counting us," he said, "and charging interest." "What do you propose?" someone asked. He looked at Evelyn, then back to the room. "That we keep our own account." Murmurs, questions. "Of what?" "Of who stands," he said, "and who doesn't." The man with the small book laughed softly. "That's not how towns work." Evelyn stood then. The room stilled. "This is not charity," she said. "This is work. You want proof? Look at the children." She gestured. They were there, sitting too straight, eyes bright. Lila held the ribbon in both hands. "You want payment?" Evelyn continued. "Here is mine. I will teach. I will answer questions. I will not hide a child. If that is a debt, write it down." Silence held, then broke into small sounds. Agreement. Doubt. Something like courage. The man with the small book closed it. "This is irregular." "Yes," Caleb said. "It is." The decision did not come clean. It never did. The assessment was delayed. The seizure postponed. Words like review and committee were used again, worn thin. Outside, the thaw broke the ice in earnest. Water ran in the gutters. Mud showed through the snow. On Friday, the sack came back. Coal, flour, apples, no note. Evelyn took it inside and split the coal smaller than before. That evening, Lila set the ribbon on the table and smoothed it. "We're still here," she said. "Yes," Evelyn said. Caleb stood at the door, hat in hand. "They'll try another way," he said. Evelyn nodded. "I know." She looked at the schoolhouse light across the yard, at the path worn deeper now by many boots. The town still counted. It always would. But so did she. "I won't break here." Spring did not arrive. It circled. The snow thinned to slush and then returned at night, stitching white back into the ruts, as if the town could not decide what it wanted to remember. Evelyn felt the change in the mornings, in the way the stove needed less coaxing, in the way children came earlier and stayed later, hands reluctant to let go of pencils. The sack did not come for 3 days. On the 4th, a different thing did. A list appeared on the church door, nailed clean and straight. Names, not many. Enough. At the bottom, a date. Evelyn did not read it all. She did not need to. She felt it in the air, in the way the street quieted when she passed, in the way a woman crossed herself and then pretended she had not. Inside the schoolhouse, the children noticed. "What's a list?" a girl asked. Evelyn turned the page. "Sometimes it's a promise," she said. Sometimes it's a threat. The bell rang early that day, not the church bell, a handbell carried down the street by a boy too young to know better. "Meeting," he called. "All welcome." All was a lie. Everyone knew it. They gathered anyway. The room was full and warm and tense, bodies packed close, breath rising. The woman stood at the front with the pastor beside her, both faces careful. "This is about clarity," the woman said, "about naming things properly." She gestured to the list. Influences, alliances, attachments. Evelyn stood near the back, Lila at her side. Caleb leaned against the wall by the door, hat off. "We've been patient," the woman continued, "but patience requires cooperation." A murmur moved the room. "You will sign," she said, "a statement that you do not support." She paused, eyes finding Evelyn, "this arrangement." The word hung there, vague and sharp at the same time. "And if we don't?" a man asked. The woman smiled. "Then we will know where you stand." Evelyn felt the heat rise. "You already do," she said. Heads turned. "You're teaching children to defy us," the woman said. Evelyn shook her head. "I'm teaching them to read." "And what they read will matter," the woman said. "So will who teaches them." A pen was passed. Paper followed. The first man signed quickly, eyes down. The second hesitated, then signed. The third wiped his hand on his coat and did not take the pen. Caleb watched, silent. Lila tugged Evelyn's sleeve. "Mama," she whispered, "is it bad?" Evelyn bent slightly. "Not yet," she said. "Look at me." Lila looked. The pen reached the row ahead. A woman with chapped hands held it, knuckles white. She looked at Evelyn, then at the paper. "I won't," she said. The room breathed in. The woman at the front smiled, thin. "Then we'll add your name." Another voice followed. "I won't either." Then another. The pen stalled. The woman's smile cracked. "Enough." She turned to the pastor. "Proceed." The pastor swallowed. "We will read the names." He did. The sound was worse than shouting. Each name landed like a small stone. Some heads bowed, some lifted. When Evelyn's name was spoken, it sounded different, louder, as if the room wanted it to be finished with her. "And the child," the woman said. A hand tightened around Evelyn's fingers. "No," Caleb said from the wall. The room stilled. The woman turned. "You again." He stepped forward. "You don't put her on a list." "She's part of it," the woman said, "like it or not." Caleb shook his head. "She's a child. And children learn from examples." Caleb met her eyes. "Then watch this." He crossed the room and took the pen. He signed his name beneath Evelyn's. He did not flourish it. He pressed hard enough to tear the paper. "There," he said. "Now read that." The woman stared. "You bind yourself to her." "Yes," he said. "I do." A murmur rose, sharper now, edged with fear. The pastor closed his eyes. "This will divide us." "It already has," Evelyn said. The meeting broke apart badly. People left in knots, voices low and urgent. Outside, the sky pressed down, gray and close. At the barn, Evelyn leaned against the door and breathed. Caleb stood a few paces away, hands empty. "You shouldn't have," she said. "I wanted to," he said. "That makes it worse." He nodded. "I know." That night, the list came back in another form. Stones on the roof. Not many, enough. Evelyn did not light the lamp. She counted the impacts. 1, 2, 3. Lila curled against her. Ribbon clutched tight. The stones stopped. Footsteps retreated. Laughter followed, thin and fast. Caleb came at dawn with boards and nails. He worked without speaking, jaw set. Evelyn held the lantern and watched the light jump. "They'll whisper now," he said finally. "Names stick." Evelyn nodded. "So do choices." At school, fewer children came. 7, then 6. Evelyn taught anyway. She did not ask where the others were. She wrote and spoke and listened. At noon, the door opened and a girl slipped in, breathless. "My ma said I could," she whispered. Evelyn smiled and made room. That afternoon, the man with the small book returned. He did not smile. "There's a petition," he said. "About propriety." Evelyn leaned against the desk. "There's always one." "It carries weight," he said. "Names." She met his eyes. "So does fear." He wrote something and left. The next day, the schoolhouse door was locked from the outside. Evelyn rattled it once, twice. The key turned uselessly in her hand. A paper had been pasted over the window, temporarily closed. Lila's breath hitched. "Mama?" Evelyn pressed her palm flat to the wood. "Not today," she said. Children gathered, confused. Parents hovered, angry and unsure. Voices rose. Caleb arrived, took in the scene and said nothing. He walked to the bank. By noon, the door was open again. No explanation. No apology. Inside, chalk dust lay undisturbed. The stove waited. "They'll try again," Caleb said. "Yes," Evelyn said. "They always do." Sunday came with rain instead of snow. The church smelled of wet wool and old wood. The sermon turned on unity. Evelyn listened and kept her eyes forward. After, a woman caught her hand. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I was afraid." "So was I," Evelyn said. The list was gone by Monday. In its place, a notice. Community discussion. Evelyn laughed once, sharp. The discussion came and went. Words were said, promises made. Nothing settled, but something shifted. At the end of the week, a boy stayed after class. He placed a coin on the desk and slid it forward. "For chalk," he said. Evelyn closed her fingers over it. "Thank you." That night, the sack returned. Flour, coal, apples, a small bundle wrapped in cloth. Inside, a new ribbon. Red this time. Lila held it up, eyes bright. "For Easter?" Evelyn nodded. "For spring," she said. Caleb stood at the door, hat in hand. "They'll remember the names," he said. Evelyn tied the ribbon and set it beside the green one. "So will I." Outside, the rain eased. The road showed through, dark and wet, leading out and back again. The town still whispered. It always would. But the door stayed open. I won't break here. Spring finally committed. Not kindly, not all at once. It arrived with mud and swollen ditches and a wind that smelled like thawed earth and old things waking. The road softened enough to swallow boots. Wagons bogged down. Patience thinned. Evelyn felt it in the schoolroom. The children shifted more. Hands lifted faster. Questions came sharper, edged with the kind of hope that made adults nervous. At the door, a new notice appeared, nailed crooked this time. Property review. Smaller letters beneath it listed dates and names. Evelyn read it once and turned away. They want the building, Caleb said that evening, standing with one shoulder against the barn post. Not the books, not the chalk, the walls. Why now? Evelyn asked. Because it's easier to take a place than a person, he said. Places don't cry. The next morning, a wagon stopped at the schoolhouse. Two men climbed down with chains coiled over their shoulders like something alive. They did not knock. Evelyn stepped outside before they could reach the door. You can't, she said. One of them shrugged. Orders. From whom? Doesn't matter. Caleb came up behind her, boots steady in the mud. It matters. The men exchanged a look. One set the chain down and wiped his hands. We'll be back, he said, already retreating. They'll come with papers, Caleb said. Evelyn nodded. They always do. At noon, the sack came again. Flour, coal, no apples this time. Evelyn split the coal smaller than before and set a loaf to bake. The smell filled the room and then the yard. A boy lingered after class, eyes on the oven. Take a piece, Evelyn said. He did, shy. My pa says this won't last. Evelyn smiled. Most things don't, she said. Some are worth doing anyway. That night, rain came hard and sudden, drumming the roof. Water found a seam and ran down the wall in a thin line. Evelyn set a pan under it and listened. I won't break here. Morning brought the papers. They came with stamps and signatures and the careful language of inevitability. The schoolhouse, they said, would be repurposed. For order. For efficiency. Lessons could continue elsewhere, under supervision. Elsewhere where? Evelyn asked. The man with the papers did not answer. Caleb read the page, jaw tight. This isn't legal. The man smiled. It's customary. The town gathered by afternoon. Curious, anxious, a few angry. The woman stood near the bank steps, gloves pristine, voice carrying. This is not punishment, she said. It's organization. Children clustered near Evelyn, hands brushing her coat. Lila stood close, ribbon red against her sleeve, green tied beneath it. Evelyn stepped onto the schoolhouse steps. The wood creaked under her boots. You want the building, she said, voice steady. Fine. Tell the children where to go. A murmur rose. The woman lifted her chin. Arrangements will be made. When? Evelyn asked. Soon. Caleb moved beside her. You don't have a plan. The woman smiled. We have authority. Evelyn looked out at the faces. Mothers with hands rough from washing. Fathers with mud on their cuffs. Children with eyes too bright. You taught them to count, a man called. They counted this. Laughter flickered and died. The men with chains returned. Evelyn raised a hand to stop. They hesitated. She turned to the children. Go home, she said gently. Take your books. They did not move. Go, she said again. They went slowly, glancing back. The chain clinked. Metal met wood. Caleb stepped forward. No. The man with the papers sighed. You'll make this worse. Evelyn felt something settle in her chest, heavy and calm. You already have. She stepped down from the steps and walked to the door. She unlocked it and held it open. If you take it, she said, you do it in daylight, in front of everyone. The men shifted. One looked away. The woman's smile thinned. You're dramatic. Yes, Evelyn said. I am. The chain did not move. The rain returned, sudden and loud, washing chalk from the door, soaking coats, turning the ground to slick. People backed away, grumbling. The moment slid. By dusk, the men had gone. That night, someone took the bell. Not the church bell, the school bell. It vanished from its hook, leaving only a pale mark on the beam. Lila noticed first. They took it, she said, voice small. Evelyn closed her eyes. Bells mattered. Caleb stood in the doorway, rain dripping from his hat. They're testing, he said. Evelyn nodded. So am I. The next day, the school opened without the bell. Evelyn called the children in by voice. It carried farther than she expected. At noon, the man with the small book came again. He did not sit. You are obstructing, he said. I am teaching, Evelyn said. He flipped pages. The property review proceeds. Then review, she said, with the children present. He frowned. That's not safe? Evelyn finished. Or convenient. He closed the book. There will be a hearing. Good, she said. The hearing came 3 days later, held in the church hall. Benches packed tight. Heat rose. The bell did not ring. The woman spoke first. She spoke of order and assets and the burden of exceptions. Evelyn spoke last. She did not argue law. She did not argue morality. She placed the children's copybooks on the table, pages smudged and earnest. Read, she said. A man did. His voice caught on a word and then found it. Another followed. A girl stood and read a paragraph without stumbling. Silence held. These are not assets, Evelyn said. They are people. The woman's smile faltered. You're manipulating sentiment. Yes, Evelyn said. It's called caring. Caleb stood. If you take the building, he said, you take the children's work. You explain that. A murmur rose. The decision did not come that night. It never did. It slid into committees and delays and careful words. Outside, the rain stopped. The air smelled clean and raw. On the walk back, a woman pressed a bell rope into Evelyn's hands. It was in my shed, she whispered. I couldn't say anything. Evelyn closed her fingers around it. Thank you. The bell was rehung the next morning. It rang thin and off-key, but it rang. That afternoon, a boy brought a note from his mother. If they take the room, we'll teach in the field. Another followed. In the barn. Another. In my kitchen. Evelyn folded the notes and tucked them into her book. Caleb watched her read them, something like wonder in his eyes. They're choosing, he said. Yes, Evelyn said. So am I. Sunday came with sun at last. The church doors stood open. The sermon was shorter. Words like unity were used less. After, the woman passed Evelyn without stopping. Her gloves were gone. At the barn, Evelyn sat on the step and let the sun warm her face. Lila traced letters in the dirt with a stick. Caleb leaned against the post, quiet. They'll try again, he said. Evelyn nodded. I know. She looked at the schoolhouse light across the yard, at the bell rope coiled in her hand, at the children's names written careful and uneven in her book. They could take walls. They could take bells. They could not take what had already been learned. I won't break here. They chose a Tuesday, not a holy day, not a market day. An ordinary morning, thin with fog, when people were meant to be busy and alone. The kind of day decisions slipped through without witnesses. Evelyn felt it before she saw it. The air pressed close. The road held its breath. The wagon came early, wheels wrapped in cloth to quiet them. Men climbed down with tools this time, not chains. Hammers, pry bars, a rolled canvas, practical things. Evelyn was already at the schoolhouse, stove lit, chalk ready. She stood in the doorway as they approached. You're early, she said. A man did not meet her eyes. By order. Caleb came up behind her, boots steady, hands empty. He said nothing. They stepped past Evelyn as if she were furniture. The pry bar bit into the doorframe. Wood complained. A nail screamed free. Stop, Evelyn said. The man paused, then worked the bar again. The canvas unfurled, meant to cover windows, meant to hide. Children arrived then, one by one, two by two. They stopped short when they saw the tools, the men, the door wounded. A girl began to cry. A boy clenched his jaw and stood closer to Evelyn. Go home, Evelyn said gently. They did not move. A hammer struck. The sound rang too loud. Caleb stepped forward. No, he said. The man with the hammer looked at him. You don't own this. No, Caleb said. But you don't either. A voice rose from the road. Another. Feet gathered. People came out of shops, out of kitchens, drawn by the sound that did not belong to morning. The woman arrived last, gloves immaculate, hair pinned tight. She took in the scene and nodded once, satisfied. This will be quick, she said, for everyone's good. Evelyn felt something settle in her chest, heavy and clear. She stepped onto the schoolhouse steps and raised her voice. Children, she said, come here. They came. She did not shout. She did not plead. She spoke the way she did in lessons, steady and plain. Take your books. They did, clutched them, held them to their chests. If they close this door, she continued, we will read anyway. A murmur moved the crowd. In the field, a man called. In the barn, another said. In my kitchen, a woman added, louder than she meant to. The woman's smile tightened. This is disorder. No, Evelyn said. It's school. The hammer rose again. Caleb moved, not fast, not slow. He placed himself between the hammer and the door. Touch it, he said, and you answer to me. The man hesitated. The crowd leaned in. The pastor pushed through, breathless. Please, he said. This isn't. It is, the woman said. Finish. The man swung. The sound was wrong. A crack that did not belong to wood. The hammer fell. The man cried out, clutching his wrist. He had struck the iron brace Caleb had set into the frame weeks ago, quiet as a promise. Silence snapped tight. Caleb did not move. We warned you, he said. The woman stared at the brace, then at the crowd. This is sabotage. This is carpentry, Caleb said. The crowd shifted. Someone laughed, quick and nervous. Someone else swore. Evelyn took the moment. She stepped down and placed the children's copybooks on the ground, open to pages filled with careful letters. Read, she said. A boy did. His voice shook and held. Another followed, then another. Words rose into the fog, thin and stubborn. The woman raised her voice. Enough! A man at the back spoke, louder. Let them finish. The pastor closed his eyes. Let them, he said. The readings went on. A paragraph, a sum, a poem about light. The fog thinned. Sun found a seam and pushed through. The woman's face went pale. You're choosing her over order, she said to the crowd. A woman answered, hands on her hips. We're choosing our children. That did it. The woman turned on her heel. This town will regret this, she said. Evelyn met her gaze. It already does, she said. That's why we're here. The men gathered their tools and left. The canvas still rolled. The wagon creaked away. The schoolhouse door stood wounded but standing. People did not leave right away. They lingered, awkward, relieved, afraid. A man pressed a loaf into Evelyn's hands. Another left chalk on the step. Someone fixed the door with nails they'd brought without saying why. The bell rang then. Not the school bell. The church bell. Once. Twice. 3 times. The pastor stood on the steps, pale. There will be a meeting, he said. Tonight. Evelyn nodded. We'll be there. Night came heavy with heat. The hall filled beyond comfort. Windows stood open. Lanterns smoked. The woman spoke first. She spoke of law and precedent and the danger of letting feeling rule. Evelyn listened. When it was her turn, she did not speak at once. She looked at the room, at the faces she knew now by habit. They meant to finish it today, she said, quietly. A murmur rose. They meant to take a door so children would stop coming, she continued. They thought we wouldn't watch. She placed the iron brace on the table, the dent bright where the hammer had struck. This is what stopped them. The woman scoffed. A trick. Evelyn shook her head. A choice. Caleb stood. I put it there, he said, so no one could pretend this was easy. The room breathed. A man rose. My boy read out loud today, he said, for the first time. Another followed. My girl came home proud. A third. If you close the schoolhouse, you'll have to close all our doors too. The woman's eyes flicked. counting again. She was losing. The pastor lifted his hands. "Enough," he said, voice steady at last. "We will vote." The vote was not close. Not anymore. The decision came clean this time. The schoolhouse would stand. The teacher would stay. Conditions lifted. Reviews ended. The woman sat very still. When she rose, she did not look at Evelyn. She walked out into the night alone. Outside, the air had cooled. Stars pricked through the dark. At the barn, Evelyn leaned against the post and laughed, once sharp and surprised. Her knees shook and steadied. "You all right?" Caleb asked. She nodded. "Yes," she said. "I think so." Lila ran to them, breathless. "Mama," she said. "They clapped." Evelyn knelt and held her tight. "Yes," she said. "They did." They stood there a moment, the three of them listening to the town settle into a new quiet. Not peace, not yet, but something like ground. "They'll remember this," Caleb said. Evelyn looked at the schoolhouse light across the yard, at the brace catching it, at the door that had held. "So will I," she said. The fog lifted. The road lay open. "I won't break here." The town did not wake up, changed. It woke careful. Morning came pale and quiet, as if the land itself were listening for something it might have missed the day before. Doors opened slower. Voices stayed low. The road lay open, but wagons took their time. Evelyn felt it in the schoolhouse before the children arrived. The door still bore its wound, a split that caught her fingers if she wasn't careful. The iron brace held. She ran her hand over it once, not in thanks, just to be sure it was real. Children came early, more than she expected. Boots tracked mud across the floor, coats piled high on hooks. A boy who had not been back since the stones came slipped into a seat and kept his eyes down. Evelyn did not call him out. She wrote the date on the board and began. The lesson held. At noon, the sack came. Flour, coal, apples. A note this time, folded small. For the school. No names. Evelyn set it aside and finished the lesson. She would decide later what to do with gratitude. Gratitude was another thing that came with strings. The woman did not come. That was the first real change. Days passed. The church bell rang as it always had. The sermon turned away from order and toward patience. No one said the word aloud, but everyone heard it. Caleb stood by the door most mornings, not guarding, just present. He fixed what broke. He spoke when spoken to. He did not explain himself. Evelyn learned the shape of the new quiet. It was not kindness. It was restraint. She accepted it for what it was. One afternoon, a man waited by the fence when the children left. He held his hat and turned it, thumb worrying the brim. "I was wrong," he said. Evelyn nodded. "All right." "That's it?" he asked. "That's it," she said. He stood there a moment longer, as if expecting punishment, then left lighter than he had arrived. The pastor came the next day. He did not bring papers. He did not bring warnings. "I should have spoken sooner," he said. "Yes," Evelyn said. He winced and managed a smile. "If you need the hall—" "I won't," she said. He nodded, relieved and disappointed all at once. That evening, the schoolhouse hosted its first meeting without orders. Parents came. Children sat on the floor. Someone brought coffee. Someone brought bread. They talked about small things: a fence that needed mending, a ditch that flooded, a book the children wanted. When the talk turned to thanks, Evelyn stood. "You don't owe me," she said. "You owe them." She nodded toward the children. The meeting ended early. People lingered anyway. Outside, Lila tied the red ribbon to the school bell rope and pulled once, soft. The sound rang thin and true. "Not too loud," Evelyn said. Lila smiled. "Just enough." Winter loosened its grip for good after that. The mud dried. The road held. Wagons passed through without stopping to stare. The woman left town on a gray morning with one trunk and no farewell. Someone said she'd found another place that liked order more than questions. No one went to see her off. Evelyn watched from the schoolhouse window until the dust settled. "That's the end," Lila said. Evelyn shook her head. "It's a pause." They learned what stayed. The schoolhouse stayed. The bell stayed. The path worn by children's boots grew deeper and sure. What stayed was the work. On a warm afternoon, a boy read a full page without stopping. On another, a girl solved a sum faster than Evelyn expected and grinned when she realized it. Caleb watched these things from the doorway, hands in his pockets, hat low. He did not comment. One night, after the lamps were out and the town lay quiet, Evelyn sat on the barn step and let the dark breathe around her. "You all right?" Caleb asked. "Yes," she said. Then, after a moment, "No." He waited. "I'm tired," she said, "and I'm afraid of what comes next." He nodded. "Me too." She looked at him then, really looked. "You chose us," she said. "You didn't have to." He shrugged, small. "I did." "That matters." "Yes," he said, "it does." They sat without touching, the space between them honest and unclaimed. The next morning, a letter arrived. Not from the town, from the county, official paper, clean edges. Evelyn read it once, then again. "What is it?" Lila asked. "A confirmation," Evelyn said, "of the position." Lila's eyes widened. "You're staying?" "Yes," Evelyn said. "We are." The letter went into the drawer with the copybooks and the coins for chalk. Life did not turn gentle. It turned workable. Some days were thin. Some days were full. Some nights Evelyn lay awake and listened for steps that did not come. But the door held. The brace held. And when the bell rang, it rang for learning, not warning. "I won't break here." Spring crossed the line without asking. It came in the sound of water running where ice had been, in the way the schoolhouse window no longer clouded by noon, in the smell of dirt waking up under the sun. The bell rang lighter now, not louder, just sure. Evelyn stood at the board and finished the last lesson of the term, with chalk dust on her sleeves and ink on her fingers. The children closed their books slowly, as if the day might vanish if they moved too fast. "Tomorrow," she said, "we start again." They smiled like she had given them something they could keep. Outside, parents waited without hovering. A few lingered to talk about summer work, about repairs, about books they might need. No one spoke about the past. It lay there anyway, like a scar you learn not to touch. Caleb leaned against the post by the door, hat low, watching Lila show a younger girl how to tie a ribbon properly. Red over green. Neat. Intentional. "She teaches now," he said. Evelyn nodded. "She always did." They walked back to the barn together as evening cooled the air. The fields beyond town lay open, green breaking through brown in stubborn patches. A fence line needed mending. A calf bawled somewhere, impatient with the world. At the door, Evelyn stopped. "This won't always be quiet," she said. Caleb smiled faintly. "Nothing worth keeping is." She hesitated, then spoke the thing she had carried. "When you knelt that first day, I didn't know if you were saving us or yourself." He considered. "Both," he said. "Maybe." That answer settled between them, honest and unfinished. Inside, Lila set 3 plates on the table without being told. She paused, looked between them, then set a 4th, smaller one by the window and placed the ribbon beside it. "For Papa," she said, matter of fact. Evelyn's throat tightened. She did not correct her. She did not explain. She let the plate stay. They ate in the soft light, the window open, the sound of the bell drifting in from the schoolhouse where someone had pulled it once, careless and happy. Later, when the sky went purple and then dark, Caleb stood to go. "You don't have to," Lila said. He looked at Evelyn. "Stay," Evelyn said. Not a promise, an invitation. He stayed. They did not speak of names. They did not speak of vows. They spoke of fences and lessons and what would need fixing before winter returned. Ordinary plans, the kind that make a life. When night settled, Evelyn blew out the lamp and stood at the door, listening to the barn breathe, to the town rest. The road lay open beyond the yard, leading out and back again. She thought of the word they had used first. Fatherless. She looked at Lila asleep, ribbon loose in her hand. She looked at Caleb by the table, mending a strap with careful fingers. Chosen mattered more. The bell rang once, thin and clear, carried on the dark. Evelyn closed the door and leaned into the quiet. "We won't break here,"